Welcome to Sister Sis. I am Calandra,
I'm Latoya.
and we have Miss Tania that's coming back and joining us again for another episode. So we'll go ahead and jump in, and we'll still continue to talk a little bit more about leadership. So, Miss Tania, how do you define effective leadership, and what traits do you believe are essential for a successful leader?
I would say influence, service, ability to bring out the best in others are key. But I will also add on to that self-awareness, which we talked about earlier, and the ability to have emotional intelligence, that
Mhm,
which is, I think, extremely important
mhm.
in the workplace today. And of course, forward thinking, adaptability, and all those things. But I would say if the first are more critical than the latter.
So on the emotional intelligence, so someone that may be struggling with dealing with that, what would you recommend for that leader that's kind of having a hard time with that?
Yeah, and I think some of that comes with self-awareness, right? You know, as I mentioned before, leadership is is hard and is complicated and it can be problematic,
Mhm,
right? But we do set the tone. And so how others respond and engage with us is based on the behaviors we exhibit, right? And
mhm,
so if we don't have control over our emotions, then it makes it harder to lead staff.
mhm,
Sometimes depending on the situation, that person might lose respect of the
mhm,
people they're leading, right? And that person eventually will become ineffective,
mhm, mhm,
right? And so how does one develop that? I would say start with self-awareness. And then the second I would say identify what the triggers are. So understand, if you don't understand your triggers and there's no self-awareness, then it will make it really hard to change. It's interesting. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. My second book is on feedback. And that's the number one thing that I find leaders really, really struggle with. And the impact of that is on the organization because if I don't know what I need to do to improve, then I can't grow. And
mhm,
oftentimes leaders have a hard time having that conversation. I call it constructive insights, but in that, right? And the flip side of it is that leader misses the opportunity to also give feedback on how they can develop, right? Especially around emotional intelligence, especially around that,
mhm,
right? And so I think it just comes with other aspects and attributes. And if a leader is not willing to explore those, such as self-awareness and gathering feedback, and being open, they will miss the opportunity to also develop and evolve.
mhm, mhm. Just to go a little bit deeper, because I myself, I'm also in leadership as well. So, and I hear what you're saying about feedback. Like I really truly strongly believe in feedback. So what I normally do for myself, like I usually give out like an annual evaluation, just like the employees get an annual evaluation. I allow my employees to give me an annual evaluation of myself. What normally ends up happening is they come back and they give me the feedback. Actually, they mark me like usually really low in the interpersonal relationship. Like I'm just an open, transparent person anyway, but in that
Mhm.
interpersonal relationship area, which I strongly agree. Everything else usually scored extremely, extremely high. But what do you do with that information, like once you get that feedback, like from the individual that you're working with in leadership, though? What would you recommend?
First, say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
First,
Mm-hmm.
say thank you, right? Because they took the time to do that. And for some people, it's easy, for some people, it's not.
Right.
And then I would say ask questions of what that means to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because sometimes it might be, well, they don't say good morning to me. I need to hear good morning. Everybody has different needs in different work styles. So find out what that means. And then find out if that's just something that you need to develop that you're comfortable with or not comfortable with. A lot of times people are not comfortable with connecting in or kind of letting people into their space. And there's no wrong or right about it. You just have to figure out where you feel safe in that and where they feel safe. And then you kind of have that common ground of understanding. But it's important to understand, when they're giving you the feedback, to have really good examples, kind of, that whole assessment thing. We'll get back to that in a minute. Um, but that's I think one of the problems with 360s provide feedback, and a lot of leaders use them to get feedback from their teams, but a lot of times it doesn't have context.
Okay.
And so it's hard to improve if you don't have context. And for leadership development, it's very critical to have an understanding of the meaning of words, the meaning of terms and example. You got to have examples,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. So dig a little bit deeper and get a little bit more information on what they're
Yeah,
meaning. Because if they're just
absolutely.
saying interpersonal skills can be improved, that's really broad. Yes.
It's too broad, right? And so circle back with your team one-on-one and say, first of all, thank you for giving me the feedback, right? And I want to get better at this and I need your help. I always say, and I always ask for feedback as well. And I say, you know what? I need your help. So help me to understand, like, how can I do this in a more effective way? And you'll be surprised. People they're happy. Some might have a long list. You might be ready for that, um, but no, but but it helps you. It helps you to
Yes.
become a stronger leader. It helps you. This is your journey. And I always say leadership is a person. It's a personal journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
if you really want to do this thing right, sometimes it might be a little painful, right? And
Right.
sometimes it will be insightful. However, the other side of it is, you come out way stronger. And so I always ask the question, do you want to be average or do you want to be amazing?
Right.
Right. And so if you're going to put the time and the effort in the place you go to every day, I would hope that everybody want to show up amazing. Well, that takes work,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, thank you for that.
I
Can you
know.
share? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Tori. Go. No, go ahead, Tori.
No, I was just gonna share an experience. It was like years ago, but I had a one-on-one with one of my old bosses, and like you had said about self-awareness, she had asked something about, do you have anything for me, or is there anything that I can work on or improve on? And it was something like you had said. I didn't really want to bring it up, so I actually kind of skipped a couple of one-on-ones before I actually told her. But she noticed a change in me, so she
Mm,
was like, "What is it?" And so
mhm,
I finally told her what it was. I said, when we had our last meeting, the first words out your mouth was, I'm surprised that
mm,
your numbers are high and that your work was good. And so that actually set me back, because it's kind of like, I looked at it as, you expected me to do bad. Like,
mm,
why wouldn't my numbers be high? Why wouldn't my work be good? And
right.
so when she said that to me, it did affect my
Mhm,
energy,
yeah.
around my work, in the meetings, I didn't have nothing to say,
Yeah.
all of that. And then she also has said too, I want you to take more initiative. I want you to do more. So
Mhm,
I'm like, well, what all you want me to do? I don't know what more is.
right.
Because whenever I would
Yeah.
ask her, what is more? She never could
Mm,
give me a good answer. And
mm,
so I brought it to her attention. I said, well, hey, I did X, Y, and Z. You didn't ask me to do it. It wasn't part of my assignment. I did it on my own time. Isn't that what taking initiative is?
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
So when I repeated these things back to her, she realized how it sounded. And she
mhm,
said, I didn't realize that I said those things to you, and just
mhm,
hearing it back. And like you said, it kind of affected her a lot. It kind of hurt her feelings a little bit. Like, I didn't realize that's how I made you feel. And I didn't
mhm,
realize how that sounded, but you repeating it back to me, I can see how that would make somebody,
right.
feel bad,
Yeah.
So a lot of times people are not aware of how they sound, how they come off, or
Mhm,
you can just be a direct person. You might not mean nothing by it, but how it's received, or how, it
yeah.
can really affect the relationship between you and that person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And and sometimes those are delicate conversations, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the reality is that there are perceptions out there. And I look at it this way, and Chicago is really a good example. You have parts of the city that's very segregated. And when you
Hmm.
go into the workplace, those perceptions are not checked at the door. They're actually magnified. So if you are not around people that look like us, that work like us, then you're relying on MTV or whatever else is on TV. And that might be your perception of a
Hmm.
group of people, right? And so what I've learned, and to do exactly what you do, what you said is like, do you mind if I, play this back to you?
Hmm.
And I always ask for permission first, because sometimes people just don't care. They're gonna say what they want to say and they don't care.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so there's no, that just says, okay, they're not going to entertain the conversation. But a lot of times, most of the time, people do want to know. And
Hmm.
and you did the right thing, play it back in a very constructive way. So this is what you said, here's what I heard, and this is
Hmm.
the impact of that, right? Why wouldn't I do good work? You hired me to do this job. the job description and your expectations are the following. So this is what I am mapping towards, right? And so this is what I hope to achieve in doing this work based on the expectations of the organization, right? So why would that not be the case for me, right? And so, and sometimes that just, it's a slow walk, because I think whenever you talk about those sort of dynamics, for some reason, people go to, well, I don't want you to think I'm a bad person. And no one is saying you're a bad person, and you're not a bad person. But sometimes perceptions can really hurt a person's career, right? And so, oftentimes, it is having the conversation in a constructive way. And before, like, as I mentioned before, having some sort of connection is so important, because it has a lot to do how people will hear you. And if you don't have that relationship or connection where you can have an open door for the conversation, it could be, combative. I've seen it be combative, and I've seen it be very welcoming, right? And, with that, especially now we're in such a polarized state, people don't know what to say. They really don't. I start with grace. I give grace first, because people just really don't know what to say sometimes.
Right, true.
I had someone say to me, you got to work hard and you got to show up and do better work than the rest of us because you are Black. And I said, really? Now this is what year 20, what? But, and I said, well, that's very interesting. So you mean everyone else gets a pass and they can do marginal and she said, yeah. And I said, oh, okay. And their shortcomings will be accepted. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? Thank you. Now I know what I'm working with. Right. And so we can't respond to everything, but we can definitely control how we work and who we are. Right. And who are we? We are people that believe in doing great work. We show up to do excellent work, excellence in what we do, and go home and take care of our families. Right. And so own where you are, contribute what you can, and the other stuff you got to let it go, because it's not your stuff. It's not your stuff. But I'm hoping that we come out of this state, whatever this is, um, better, stronger, smarter, wiser, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
Right. My blood is the same color as yours. We do have more common than not, right? And I truly believe that in the humanity state, right, we are all striving for something good, right? I think there are things that get in the way sometimes, but I do believe that people want to show up and be good people.
Right, right. Can you share any particular tools or resources that can help develop leadership skills?
Well, one of my favorite books, and everybody teases me about this, but I do like The 5 Levels of Leadership, John Maxwell. I love John Maxwell's work.
I love his work too. I haven't heard of that one. I have to look that one up.
Yeah, I like John Maxwell. And then, an old-fashioned real life experience, but I think what has helped me, I've always had a committee of mentors, and I'm always curious. I don't show up having the answers. Actually, I like to just show up and be curious and ask a lot of questions. And I love being in the room with people from different backgrounds, different perspectives. I always walk away with nuggets. But I've always had a committee of mentors that I have found to be extremely helpful to help me see things differently, navigate situations, as part of my growth. But I would say those things are starters. Having a committee of mentors is very powerful, especially if their backgrounds are different than yours. It allows you to round out your skill set.
How did you build that network of your leadership, the mentor, excuse me, for leadership?
Okay, I know this is crazy, but it works for me. Everybody does their own thing. But
Yes.
I read. I
Yes.
love to read. If I read an article and I like what I see, I will contact that person. LinkedIn, it's like my golden abyss of information.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
just reach out. I'll reach out on LinkedIn
Mm,
and say, read your article. I found it, very interesting, or I was engaged in this aspect of it, and I would like 15 minutes of your time to understand XYZ.
okay.
I have met some phenomenal people that way, and I'm sure when they first, and some people are like, I didn't know what to think, but you will find that people respond. I mean,
Yes.
people really respond. You're like, wow, okay, but I honor their time.
Okay.
I only ask for 15 minutes, and I never go over 15 minutes. And I
Okay.
always have my two questions that, I never go more than two questions. I only ask for two
Okay.
questions. And, for some, I continue the conversation, and from there I just started, piecing people together. And I typically have, a little committee of 3 to 5, and I have found it to be extremely helpful. And I'm not, I used people laugh when I say this, but there was a time when I was a little shy, and I'm still a little shy, but I want to own and be the best in what I do, and I take great pride in what I do.
Hmm.
And if you're not putting new things in your tool belt or reaching into different thought leaders, then you become stagnant.
Right.
I'm always amazed when leaders feel they have the answer to everything, or they have to put their stamp on everything. I'm just amazed by that in this day and age. But there are people like that. That's not how I want to lead. I want to tap into the thought leaders, the best of the best, and I want to learn from those individuals and continue to grow as a leader.
Okay. That's a golden nugget. Thank you for that one. I never would have thought of that. How do you handle the pressures and responsibilities that come with leadership roles?
Mm. Faith, no,
Right?
uh, in all seriousness, I take it in stride, meaning I'm very patient, and I'm a listener. And I think with all the noise taking place today, you got to have a place of calm, right? And so I don't react. How do I handle? I don't react. I try to listen for what's going on, what's said and what's not said, and I seek to understand.
Hmm.
And I try to be helpful in the situation, and sometimes it's not even a matter of being helpful. It might just be listening. It just might be, awareness, or it might be, being the adult in the room. I don't know. I mean, I say that jokingly, but whatever role that is, and I don't mean like adult in the room, but just being the voice of reason, right? And I stay rooted in my purpose, and I stay rooted in who I am, and I don't let that change, right? And so someone, I know you guys have heard it as well, and in crisis, the real you will show up. And you know, I would like to think that in crisis, in good times, joy, laughter, pain, I am the same person. And so, one of the things that has been shared with me that people appreciate is that I can be calm in the storm. And so, I think listening is very important to understand, what pain is going on around you. Because sometimes it might not be really directed to you. It might be that person,
Hmm.
or it could be you triggered something, right? Or it could be you. It could be many things, right? But I just choose not to respond in the moment. That's one of the things that I've learned, and I think is really important, is not to respond in a moment, because once you let it out, you can't take it back.
No.
And that impression is formed, right? Based on whatever, right? So that will, I would say, remain calm and be willing to learn from the experience and also move on.
Yeah.
Because if you'll either learn what to do or learn what not to do, but there's always something to learn. And so I choose to say, what can I take away in this moment, so that I know how to respond even better the next time.
Hmm.
Hopefully there won't be a next time, but if it is, then at least and having control of your own emotions and reactions, at least how you show up, right? And then too, it has a lot to do with integrity. a lot to
Mhm.
do with
Right.
integrity, right? So own your stuff. You know, if it was a misstep on your part, own it and figure out how to grow from it.
Mhm.
I'm always amazed when, people are deflect or the blame game. I mean, I'm just truly I would love to do a white paper on the blame game. I think there's some deep emotional stuff attached to that, but people that get in that gerber wheel of that, right? So how can you help bring clarity in the midst of that, and how can you help that situation move forward?
Mhm.
So in short, I would say, be aware of your behavior because that's what you can own. Don't respond to if it's charged and negative. Don't respond to it in the moment. Take time to reflect. And if it's yours, own it. But go back to reconcile it.
No.
Don't let it go and dismiss it because it'll show up again somewhere else and it probably will be more magnified.
Right. Right. What advice would you give to someone who is stepping into leadership position for the first time?
Pray. No,
No, pray every day, twice a
every day.
day.
No, being a leader today is hard. I say this all the time, there's there's not a perfect way of doing it. Being a leader today, I said this to someone else, it's just messy
Mhm.
because it's so complex and there's just so many different competing issues and things taking and then you got to drive organization and success, right? And then you have to also drive human behavior, which is so unpredictable. But what I think is important is to be curious, to be open. Leadership is a privilege. It really is. And if someone is willing and wanting to be a leader, I would say know who you are first.
Mhm.
Self-awareness is key. It is
Mhm.
really key. And if you don't know who you are, people will mold and develop you into what they want you to be. And if they don't know who they are, then guess what? You're not going to know who you are. So know who you are and know what your expectations, your values, because when people follow you, they're watching all of that. They're watching all of, and they will determine if they will follow you sincerely or with one eye open. So I would say know who you are. And then self-awareness and be curious. Some of the best leaders I've worked for are journey learners and they're always open to possibilities. And one of the best leaders I worked for, Tim Bennett, he was just amazing. And he worked with so many strong personalities, and he was the calm person in the room. And he was able to get the best out of every person. And there's something of course, the value in that, and the respect that he had was just amazing. And he wasn't the loudest person in the room. He didn't talk over people. He didn't play politics to hurt. None of the stuff that you hear about and you see. That was just not his style. He was very humbled, high integrity, very consistent. And, definitely I was watching and I said, wow, that's the kind of leader I want to be,
Mm.
So just keep in mind, people are watching. And do you want to be that leader, you know, that people tolerate, or do you want to be that leader that people aspire to?
Right. Right.
Right.
Okay. On personality assessments, what are your thoughts and feelings about personality assessments in the workplace?
Let me tell you, I think assessment tools are sometimes not used in the right way. So
Mhm.
I'll start there. I think if they're used in terms of understanding team dynamics, they work extremely well, right? There's Myers-Briggs, there's colors, there's all these different laundry lists, and then there's these homegrown tools that are really fascinating. Um, but the reality is that nothing takes away from, if I want to really get some feedback on someone on my team, I just talk to the people. I mean, there's something about having a one-on-one conversation where you have better context. I haven't seen a tool really measure that to that degree. Does it get is Are they indicators? Yes. I think sometimes people misuse them in a way of pegging people, and that's really what I don't agree with. So when I laughed in the beginning, it's like, I've taken every instrument possible, and there were only one or two that I think were correct. The rest, I just like, this is insane. This is not right. But there were probably two that I think hit the mark. And so I tend to I do like assessment tools. I use them for team dynamics and team building. I don't like to use them as an assessment of, profiling or who are you as a leader. I have not seen that work.
I see. Okay.
But I don't, it's just my own personal, I know there's probably some consultants listening saying, what? What? I use those tools. I sell those tools. But I say that because I've gone into organizations where 360s and those assessment tools were just weaponized. And I've seen like just really like where it was just trauma to some leaders based on the experience they had because they did not have a good practitioner administering the tool. When you have someone that is very well versed with the tools and understand how to work with the organization, the leader, the team, and so on, then yes, it works extremely well. I do use the tools. So I don't want to walk away saying I do use self-assessment tools, but I'm also very careful in what setting and making sure that it's the right tool for the organization. Every tool is not a cookie cutter.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes, people, oh, this is my tool. I developed it and this is what it does. Well, no, it really doesn't. So I can be a little cynical about that one. I'm sorry. But it really depends on the organization. And I think communicating what a tool does and how you want people to interact with it is very important. If you're trying to get feedback on someone and the organization is not a feedback organization, I haven't seen that really work. Or if the information is shared out with, a list of folks and the employees have never used them before, that's not what you want to do. So, I think with the right practitioners, the right expertise, they work well. And I do think there's some responsibility that comes with, like with anything else, right?
Right. Right. Are there any tools that you would recommend, like if someone is trying to build a good, strong leadership team and they're trying to onboard and hire someone in leadership that they want to be great? Is there any tools that you would recommend using?
It depends on the organization. It
Mm.
really does. It depends on the organization and it depends on their history with assessment tools. I know a lot of organizations like DISC and Myers-Briggs has been around for so long, but there are other tools too I think are just as good. So I don't want to take away from other tools. It depends on the organization. I would want to understand the organization first before I would recommend a tool.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Miss Tania, for joining us here today. Do have
Thank
a
you.
question before we kind of close out is how can someone find you if they're looking to work with you and like what exactly do you have to offer to an organization or to people that's in leadership?
Oh, okay. So I have an Instagram, which I'm so excited about. It's kind of like my way of, you know, giving out goodness in the world on a daily basis. So my Instagram is the Leadership Wise, and I have a website and a blog. Same thing. I try to my content on my blog is all about leadership development and workplace culture and how to lead.
Mhm.
And it's the same, theleadershipwise.com. I was really creative. And and of course I'm on LinkedIn. So either my website, Instagram, or LinkedIn. People
Okay.
can
And
find.
where can people find your books?
Oh, on Amazon. Oh, thank you. So my first book is on servant leadership, and I am a huge fan of servant leadership for all the things we just talked about. And then my second book is on feedback, on the blueprint for feedback, constructive insights, where literally I give step by step, like a new leader could take it and run with it. And I'm also told, seasoned leaders found a lot of value in it. So that's where they can find the information. And it's all on Amazon.
Awesome.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
is there anything else that you want to leave us with that maybe we didn't cover today?
You know what? I will leave with one thing, and that is for your listeners. Everything starts with us, one person. If there's a movement for negativity, we can always start a movement for positivity. So, I encourage and challenge one day, just one day, do something nice for someone else. If you have someone on your team that's struggling, give them a kind word, encourage them, help them, mentor them, right? If you don't know who they are and there's some mystery to that person, invite them to lunch, invite them to coffee, reach out. I think we need to reach out and really show the humanity. We are so much better than how we're showing up in the world. And, I would like to see that.
Positivity and kindness. Well, thank you, Miss Tania. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you
us
so
here.
much.
Thank you.
So until next time, there's strength in sisterhood
And supporting sisterhood. Bye.
Bye.